Fight fam, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification. Class in session.
The most recognizable aspect of Regis's game is his slick upper torso movement. Athletic as he is, it isn't uncommon for him to make his op miss and bail himself out of poor positions. However, using solely upper torso movement with a half guard at best and at worst no guard at all means that said upper torso movement and footwork become his only lines of defense, leaving him heavily reliant on timing and reflexes, both of which can be disrupted by feints, probes, and doubling or tripling punches. On the subject of head movement, pre-slips make up a huge part of his game. While pre-slips keep his head off the line and makes it a difficult and awkward target for the most part, they also serve as a surveying tool to observe openings and set up his offensive attack. They can, however, become detrimental due to their repetitive and rhythmic nature. Keen-eyed fighters have eventually begun to time Regis as he repositions his head from slot to slot. The most common punch used to time him as he does this is the jab, which Catterall is apt to utilize. Regis has shown that he will sometimes throw up a high guard in reaction to lead hand probes and combinations. Jack is skilled at mixing together power punch combinations to exploit the openings present in the guard. Regis reveals serious holes in his defense whenever he is on the offensive. In general, he simply lacks a good defensive responsibility, since his hands start low, but more than likely coming back low, and in an antithesis to his usually slick head movement, when he's throwing or running combinations, he'll usually keep his head squarely on the center line. Both could prove to be major hurdles for Regis, as he's dealing with a skilled counterpuncher with power in Jack Catterall. Catterall has shown the ability to continue his offense by circle jabbing to the right. As you circle towards your lead hand using jabs to freeze your opponent's feet, they cannot match new positioning quick enough. You force them to become squared relative to yourself. In this position, both fighters resemble the letter T, with you forming the stem. Here, you expose their center line to attack, allowing Jack to further set up his offense, especially the backhand. Regis has a number of issues with his feet that can make this fight a rather problematic outing. Above all, he doesn't seem to have the ability to cut off the ring using fundamental footwork. Instead of matching his opponent's lateral footwork to cut off escape routes, Regis will rather crosswalk and compromise his base while following his opponent around the ring. Being mostly bladed to his op doesn't help him, as it becomes difficult mechanically to match lateral movement while staying true to fundamentals. With a bladed opponent, it's then easier for the fighter moving laterally to find escape routes. In addition to the previously mentioned footwork issues, Regis has the tendency to come forward with his back foot first, which is breaking from fundamentals. As he gathers his feet with the first step, he's temporarily out of stance, and he's front foot heavy while completing the second step back into stance. High-level fighters have been able to use back foot first as a means to enter range with a loaded back foot and by extension loaded rear hand, but as Regis hasn't been shown to do this, it's a vulnerability. He will also at times utilize the forward shuffle to enter range and begin his offense. While doing this, Prograis breaks his base as he enters range and lands front foot heavy. Though unlike his habitual back foot first, here Regis does at times set up his backhand off the shuffle. Both techniques leave him highly susceptible to disengagement traps that Catterall is shown to have in his toolkit. By stepping out of range and disengaging, he baits his opponents to come forward and then attacks before or just as they set into stance while entering punching range. If utilized as Prograis breaks distance without fundamental footwork, Catterall could potentially find a great deal of success. Catterall in the past has put himself in compromising positions due to an issue moving back in straight lines. He doesn't get off the line of attack and ends up on the ropes in a disadvantageous ring position. This defeats the purpose of his attempts to control distance, as he obliges inside opportunities that would otherwise not be present. Catterall has some issues that find their origin in him being rather heavy on his front foot. To begin with, even with probes to match the timing of his lead hand, when he does commit to a jab, he'll reach and linger on his front foot. Given that Regis isn't unwilling to straight up eat the jab to land powerful counters, this may prove to be a real issue for Jack. He also tends to get stuck on his front foot while moving laterally towards his right, resulting in a crosswalk to preserve his balance. This negatively affects his ability to set lateral traps as he's moving in that direction, as it gives his op more time to set into stance before or just as he can. Jack's usage of the Philly shell comes with some problems. Firstly, it diminishes his ability to control distance while his lead hand is in the sling. Whenever his lead hand is holstered, there's nothing to occupy the space between him and his op until he takes his arm out the sling to probe a jab. It then becomes much more important that Catterall controls distance with his feet. However, as previously noted, that's something he can struggle with. At mid-range to inside, his willingness to default to the Philly shell exposes some limitations with his execution of the defensive system. Generally, he has issues with his backhand placement that lead to him being inconsistent with blocking the lead hand hook. He also isn't the best at consistently rolling the shoulder, leaving him susceptible to the backhand. If Catterall so chooses to avoid an inside fight completely, he's not above shutting down the engagement if the opponent gets too close, either smothering and clinching to stop the action or pushing off to reset the fight the distance. Regis has never been a physical fighter and isn't particularly good at breaking clinches once he finds himself in one. In my opinion, this is Jack Catterall's fight to lose. The blueprint to frustrate and beat Regis Prograis on the outside is clear. Force him to come forward and try to cut off the ring. Jack has all the skills necessary to pull this off, but his issues with his front foot and odd moments trying to work in a 50-50 with his shell, either intentionally or having been backed onto the ropes, give Regis a decent puncher's chance. Let me know how you got it in the comments below. Thanks for watching.